All right, I'm live if you want to mute me.
Lying in my bed, I hear the clock ticking, think of you. Caught up in circles, confusion, it's nothing new. Flashbacks, warm nights, almost left behind. Suitcase, memories, time after. Sometimes you picture me, I'm walking too far ahead. You're calling to me, I can't hear just what you say. You say go slow, I fall behind. The second hand unwinds. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I'll catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time. Time after time. After my picture fades and darknesses turn to gray, watching through windows, you're wondering if I'm okay. Secrets stolen from deep inside. The drum beats out of time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time. Time after time. Time after time.
Apparently, Melanie's back. What? Going for it at the end. Thank you so much. Welcome. I'm Ben. I'm the pastor of the church. I'll be your host tonight. Here in beautiful, rainy downtown DeLand, globally at wearecollectivechurch.com, where you can subscribe, you can stay connected. The life of the church. We are gathering safely in person. Thank you guys. Masks are up unless you're a liturgist who's talking. We're also live streaming. If you don't want to be on a camera, be in this area over there. That's where you want to be. We respect your privacy. In person and online, live now or later on, whenever, wherever, your presence makes us who we are. Liturgy means the work of the people. That means it's not my show. It's all of us working out spiritual community together. Here to help us work tonight are our liturgists. Give them a hand. We've got Kenny, Dan, Heather, and if I can get them up, my friend Terry's here from St. Augustine, so we may call him out. Not right now. When the time is right, and that's important because tonight's about time. When the time is right. So Kenny's been a guiding voice in the community, a good friend of mine for a long time. He's going to be guiding the online community tonight and bringing their voice into the room. Kenny, who have we got with us tonight? We have anybody online?
We've got Kathy Beasley.
Hey, Kathy. Awesome. Good to see you.
Jim Kane.
All right.
Kayleen.
Cool.
Rajni.
Fantastic. Rajni will be here next week as a liturgist. That's exciting.
Yeah, we've got a great group of people watching.
Awesome. Good folks online. Fantastic. Yeah, I talked to Kayleen a little while ago, and she's like, do you need me there tonight? Actually, she was going to get Andrew a ride. She's like, do we need someone that has a ride? Do you need me there? And I was like, I think we're okay. She's like, okay, I'm going to log on because I'm coming all the way from Orlando, and it's super rainy. So Kayleen, totally understand if you're online. We are super grateful you're here. Thanks for joining us. So, our musicians tonight, obviously Melanie's back. Melanie, we're so glad to have you back with us. With us always is Fred, and we are, let's continue to be aware, continue to be careful. We are still in the age of COVID, and even though things seem to be getting better, people close to us, like Andrew Brooks from last Sunday, is down with COVID. We're being careful, okay? Extra careful. So Brooks is out. We are sending him our prayers and love while he recovers. A lot of people have gotten tested to make sure we didn't have exposure there. And you guys are here. St. Augustine, we've got a huge family here for baptism tonight. We're here again. Week number 2, we're back. We all are collective church. That's the point. Heather's going to remind us what that means with our community statement. Heather, what does that mean?
So that means we value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community. And we've traveled different paths. So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language, because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So, we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. And if you were here last week, you heard this. If you have not gotten a chance yet, this is the new community statement song called "Love Without Why." What a great example of a gift that gives beyond itself. Andrew Brooks wrote this song. He was here last week to introduce it. This week he's come down with COVID, but he sent us the charts so that we can still continue to play it and continue to sing it, even though he's not here. So this is also our first time ever leading the song that Brooks wrote for us. So rather than you guys thinking of it as we're doing this for you, again, work of the people, we're going to do the instrument parts, but let's all do it. Fair enough? So here's the lyrics.
Oh, 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 oh. We travel different paths. We're beautiful people with messy paths, so have no fear, no judgment here. Whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in anything, there's something you can teach us. You belong, no right or wrong. Leading into grace, help us make a place with an open table. No one's turned away. Love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals. You are held in light. Good news on your side. Oh, 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 oh. Life is full of mystery, and solidarity helps to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Leaning into grace, help us make a place with an open table. love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals. You are held in light. Good news on your side. Oh, 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 oh.
All right. So we've said the community statement, we've sung the community statement. Now, how do we, as a congregation, between now and the next time we get together, how do we practice the community statement? That's what this is about. So Kenny, talk to us about how we practice this week.
Well, it starts with your email. So if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to the email and check the box for the rundown. If you've already subscribed, you would have got an email this Wednesday. And if you didn't, it might be in your spam folder. Or if you use Gmail, it'll be in your promotions folder. If you need any assistance, you can ask me after the service. With that email, or at the bottom of any email from us, you can update your preferences at any time. So check your preferences, select the rundown, and then which groups you want within the rundown. Basically, you're customizing your dashboard. So for example, if you selected the rundown and had yoga, work, and collective cares, you'd end up having a really full week. If you don't subscribe to the rundown, you won't be getting updates on any of our new or relaunched groups either. That includes Art and Soul, Collective Kids, Death Cafe, and the Be Quiet.
Right, the new stuff coming up, you got to subscribe to the rundown, even just to get general new group announcements. That's going to be where you want to go.
Yes, we can help you get set up right after services at the bar over there. Then you'll see as much or as little as you want of us and our weekly practice menu in your inbox.
We had fun this week, so Kenny and I have a weekly meeting with New York Ave, who does some of our web hosting and helps us with email stuff. But we got to get like behind the scenes, not to get stalkery on you guys. But after Easter, it was fun to go in and see the numbers, and they're like, hey, a bunch of people are actually interested in the volunteer groups. A bunch of people are interested in the Be Quiet, and I'm like, all right, if people want to work and shut their mouths, I can work with that. We can build a church on that. Don't I need it most? So awesome. That's what's coming up. You guys can practice. And speaking of which, actually, for example, this is a great way to kind of make it very clear that we need help to do what we do. So just take a look around the room, right? It's nice. It's nice to be in here. It's well set up. It's thought through. One of my spiritual gifts is feng shui, so that things are all spaced out nicely. Okay. But that doesn't happen on accident, right? Show them, Caroline. So there are a lot of needs that come up quickly as a result of meeting in person again for the first time in a year. After the service, we always go, hey, we have yoga tomorrow. Let's break down the room. And it takes us like 4 minutes. But who puts the room back? It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes. That was me yesterday. And with more people, it would take less time. And there's a lot of things. Like if we want to have people greeting, if we want people who know how to set up and tear down the room, if we want to have more than just Caroline who can run slides, if you want to be trained on what it means to be a liturgist, there's a lot of things where the more people we have, the more hands, the better. And so that's a great example. There's a checkbox for volunteers in the rundown. If you check that, you're going to get a message this week because we're going to start organizing everyone with all these great intentions to help out. We'll tell you how you can actually do that. And I want to say thank you because you guys are willing. I mean, you have no idea the relief it is to look at the email stats and go, hey, a bunch of people checked volunteer. Cool, so we can work with that. We can organize that. Speaking of practice, I'm going to call my good friend Sarah Humbert up here. Sarah is our OG yogi for Collective. And she and I are going to have a quick conversation to kind of lead into our topic tonight. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're talking tonight about, and really for the next 3 weeks, we start tonight talking about what it means to practice neighborhood. And some of the question is, we've had this really weird year. And for those of us who are still here, we're still here, but differently. So how do we move back into our neighborhoods in terms of how we practice with our community, but also kind of the broader neighborhood around us? In the kind of the main idea for tonight, we're talking about how we practice time in a neighborhood. How do we relate to time? And so here's kind of the main idea. In the practice of neighborhood, time is measured by depth, and there is enough. Just listen to that again. You can shut your eyes if you want, because it feels like one of those inspiring kind of things. In the practice of neighborhood, time is measured by depth, and there is enough. There is enough. How many of you, just hearing that, like there was hair on the back of your neck or like a layer of stress, maybe like started washing away? In the neighborhood, there's enough. We're not rushed. We can slow down. So Sarah leads us every Monday in practicing yoga, which brings a lot of these ideas together, but I specifically wanted her to talk to us for a second about yoga as depth time, sort of the awareness of your body in time, and then also about the value of practicing something over time, because we're in the same gig here. So what do you think?
That's a lot.
Yeah,
right?
it is,
It's a
sure.
lot. Let's talk about time for a second. So it's real easy, I think, to think you don't have enough time, right? Out of there's only 24 hours in the day.
Right.
I've got this to do. There's never any time, right? It's very easy to kind of have that thought because we do live in a highly productive society where it's gotta go, but there's never
Efficiency.
enough time to do those things that are good self-care practices that help bring us benefits to improve the quality of life, be able to do these things long term, right? So when you're thinking about time and specifically body awareness and things to that effect, you might think that there's enough time, but your phone will even tell you, hey, you spent 4.5 hours on your phone last week, and it's horrifying, right?
Yeah.
It's horrifying sometimes to think that's where all my time went. But if you can dedicate a few minutes every week to be able to give this self-care practice back to you, you're going to find so much more positivity, so many more benefits to be able to endure whatever's coming at you as we're coming back into society, being around people, right?
Yeah.
Being around people again could be very traumatizing.
That's
Could
hard.
be very anxiety-inducing,
Yeah.
myself included. So when you're thinking about practicing yoga, for example, depth is a big thing that we talk about, the repetition practice and making sure that you're doing it in some sort of consistency, because otherwise you won't be able to maximize those benefits. But also, you need those benefits to be able to function appropriately in life. You need time to stop. You need to be able to maximize this time that you think that you've lost and be able to utilize that with leading that breath, that stillness, and that movement, because movement is life. We have to keep moving. Society encourages us to keep moving, right? So we don't want to run out of gas, so to speak. We want to be able to maximize the miles on those cars that we call our bodies. So doing those things in yoga and meeting here on Monday nights provides that and recharges us. It gives us energy, and it gives us kind of like a blank slate to be able to start the week fresh, instead of jaded and tired and.
That's what so many of our practices are too, like all the different ways that we, and whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think you can take metaphors too far, but not even necessarily hit reset, but like we just, like we're going to do in a second, sitting in silence, to come back to center, to sort of find balance. I was listening to this podcast this week about, that was sort of looking at the history of prescribed times of prayer, especially in the Middle East, and the fact that it goes through sort of the bell curve of the assumption of like religious obligation, where the prescribed times are a rule, and therefore they're a liability, and they're something that you owe the divine in order to keep the divine happy. And they said the other side of the bell curve is the realization that it was always a gift. The 5 times a day, the moving your body, the coming back to center, it was never to satisfy, it was never a liability, it was always the gift. It was always the practice, was the thing itself. So, awesome. Well, give us just a couple minutes of some seated kind of good stuff.
If anyone wants to stand for this, you are more than welcome. I encourage you to do that. If you want to just stay seated, then just do this way. It's just some real easy moves, so just make sure that you are looking at people, or aware of people behind you, because you might be flapping your arms a little bit. Don't want to slap anybody in the face. Or maybe. So I want you to sit with both feet on the ground. If you would, think about your feet being generally underneath your knees. Maybe you can sit on the edge of the chair, if that's possible, at least to the point where you feel like your sits bones are nice and even and you're not grounding back. I want everyone to take a nice big inhale. Take your hands out to the sides. Again, watch your neighbors. Inhale and draw the arms up. Big inhale, inhale, inhale. And then just exhale and just lower those hands down. Inhale again. And this time stretch your fingers out as you're drawing them up and inhale. Kind of think about sitting down into your chair, but lifting everything kind of north of your waist. North is up, by the way. Let's exhale and come down. Good. All right. Now, if you're sitting in a chair that you can actually grab the edge of, not all chairs are created equal, and if you're sitting on a sofa, you're like, you're out of luck. But if you are able to sit and grab the chair bottom next to you, if not, everybody else kind of grab underneath your thigh, or you can rest the hand next to your body. Let's inhale the left arm up, grab with the right hand, stretch all the way up. And then you're just gonna bring, on the exhale, just bring the hand over to your right so you can stretch that left side of your body. And it's okay if you're going in the other direction. We usually do both sides in yoga, if I remember. Good. And inhale, and let's just draw the arm up and bring it back down to face. And then you can take that hand we just stretched up and hook it under the chair. And then inhale the other arm up, stretch it all the way up, 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 up into your nose. And then we're gonna exhale and just bring it to the left side. Keep going. Go. And inhale. Let's take our hands, bring them on our shoulders. We're just going to inhale and draw circles back a couple of times. You hear a lot of cracks, pops, snaps, like breakfast cereal. And then exhale and round them forward. That's normal. Let's let those hands rest. And if you want to do a little neck stretch, take your right hand up to your left temple. Your left hand can just kind of hang out and chill. And as you exhale, you're going to draw your right ear to your right shoulder. So you're going to stretch the left part of your neck. Oh, I heard someone go, ooh.
Ooh, yeah.
That's correct.
That's it.
And if you even want to get a bigger handful, you can take your hand closer to your jaw. Your paraspinal muscles. And then if you want to take your right hand, bring it to the right side of your face. Just bring your head to neutral and a nice gentle. Good. And then you can rest that right hand down. Let's take the left hand up to your right temple. As you inhale, draw the head up. And then as you exhale, bring your left ear to your left shoulder. Relax your right hand. Or you can grab it. For those of you who have a chair, grab under the chair. Cute. I do not. Babies are cute when they. Not like me. All right, let's take the left hand to the left side of the face and just draw it up. Good. Now we're going to inhale, and we're just going to fold. Watch, if there are tables in front of you, you might not be able to go full pitch down. Okay, so everyone be aware of that. You can kind of spread the knees apart a little bit and just kind of round into yourself. And just kind of hang forward a little bit so you sound like this if you're talking. And just let everything kind of go. If you can still breathe. And just take some deep breath if you can still breathe. And then if you want to take your hands and kind of walk your hands up your legs. And if you want to just take an inhale and bring the arms behind you, interlace your hands behind you if you
I'm taking my own.
have the space. If not, you can just kind of bring them behind to open up the chest. It's kind of like a little back bend. And you can even look up towards the ceiling. And you want to take your head back to neutral and just let your hands come and float back down to the tops of your thighs. So do you feel a little more relaxed now? Or more weirded out because you did all that with a mask on? More humid in this region? Yeah.
Humid and humid.
So those are the kinds of things that we do on Monday nights. But maybe we're on mats on the floor. We don't have masks on while we practice if you choose to. If you want to keep them on, that's totally okay. But this is a huge space, so we're able to spread out. No one's breathing in anybody's face. We encourage props. It's a very gentle class. We can do anything from chairs to bolsters to blocks to blankets. So I encourage you, if you would like to join us on Mondays at 6, a donation, $5 donation is suggested, and the wonderful collective provides everything.
Yeah, come practice with us. Wanted to give you a little taste for that, sort of like we do with a lot of practices in here. Thanks a bunch, Sarah. And yeah, you guys can't find a better yogi. So come on Mondays if you want. If you yourself don't want to, please send people on. I got to do it this week, and it was really, really great. It's awesome to be back in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Now that we're present in time to our bodies, it's always interesting, right? Pete Holmes has this great stand-up bit about sweating on airplanes, and I feel the same way about yoga. Like, what were you doing? Literally sitting down and breathing, and I'm just drenched in sweat. Thank you, Sarah, for that. We're going to sit in silence. Now that we're present to our bodies, we're going to sit in silence just for a few minutes. If you're in the room, we're going to ask you to sit silently with us, to shut your eyes, silent for just a few minutes. We're going to sound the singing bowl, and then we want to ask you to just join us in gently returning to your attention. And you might call that centering, you might call it prayer, you might call it meditation. The idea is that your mind is going to wander, and that you can be gracious with yourself and come back to your breath. Without judgment, you can just notice and gently return to your breath. And if you're online, you might be driving, you might not be in private, you might not want to watch people meditate. So we've embedded for the online community some drone footage from our friends at 3 Button Media. You can use that drone footage with or without audio and make it a tool that's useful for you in sort of surveying the inner lens. So use that as you want to. However it is that you enter, may the silence allow you to contemplate what you want the ceremony to accomplish for you. Humility, spiritual rebirth, strength for what lies ahead. Relax. It's all right. Sit silently for about 3 minutes. One of the things that we like to acknowledge, just because we all come at this from different places and different paths, is that sitting in silence is not easy for everybody. We know it's tough. We also know it's good for us, so we're going to keep practicing it. But if that was not enough for you and you want more, you should check out a group called the Be Quiet. It's going to be coming up in about 3 weeks. Start this group up. And again, you've got to be clicked on the rundown because then you'll get the group email. Sitting in silence is such a powerful practice for surrendering control. In a sense, sitting in silence is surrendering producing anything, even a sound. Which isn't American, but it feels. To simply adopt a posture of listening, rather than producing, rather than filling the silence, just to listen. We shared this quote a few weeks ago, listening to time for the sound of God. And when we sit in silence, part of what we're doing is we're stating loudly with our silence that there's immense value in simply being. That even if we don't say anything, build anything, contribute anything, add anything, that there's somehow still value in us simply being. And I think maybe what grates against us is that there would be value in us being, even when we're not in control. I think for me, being silent is a surrender of. And part of what we're doing, part of why we're talking a lot about practice, is that we're trying to practice things that shape our relationship with control. Because part of what I know is if I can affect my relationship with control, that directly impacts my sense of connectedness to God, for sure. Because I need to be in control of it. And so we do things like ritual. We repeat things over time. That's spirituality in this rhythmic, seasonal sort of time, like rites of passage, like the ritual of baptism. So we have tonight, we have a baby that's going to be baptized. And isn't baptism, especially the baptism of a baby, a perfect symbol for how little control we have, how little control we have over people, and how sacred that surrender is. We can't control this baby, right? She'll cry. She's going to cry. She's going to spit up. She's going to smile. We will try, and I'm not saying that's not great parenting. We'll try to control less cries and more smiles, but she's a baby, so good luck. And then we'll try and control her sleep. and at the same time, look at the baby's mother. Look at her dad. She's perfect. Right? And yet she's perfect. We love her. We don't bend her to our will. Part of what baptism is surrendering control and calling it love. And that's baptism. Baptism's the same. There's this version of Christianity. There's this version of baptism that's about control, and it's about transaction. You control your belief, and then after that, you control your behavior, and then somehow you sort of buy your way in to belonging. It's about control and transaction. You purchase your fitting into the community. But a baby can't control their belief, and a baby can't control their behavior. They can't buy their way into the community. And so there's this whole other version of Christianity, this whole other version of baptism that flips this around. It begins with the surrender of control. It celebrates what we call unconditional belonging. You'll see it at the top of our website. Unconditional belonging, transformative love. The idea is the baby belongs first, and the baby belongs without condition. And then just like in any family, you can't change your blood, nor can you be unbaptized. You can't unbelong to this. So in baptism, unconditional belonging creates safety. First and foremost, unconditional belonging creates safety so that this baby can learn the tribe or the family or the community's language and customs and rituals. We call these things, by the way, behaviors. Holiday tradition, stories about old Uncle Crazy Josh, whatever. And the idea, though, is not that we control their behavior, but rather that with unconditional belonging, we create space for their behavior to share with us, right, in what we call practice. And once someone belongs, and you may be starting to go, wait a minute, he's not just talking about this baby, is he? Once someone belongs to a community without condition, once they grow to share the practices that are important to that community, perhaps over time, they will come to believe some of the same things. And I promise you, they'll come to believe many, many different things. Conviction, ideology, theology, knowing that these will change over time. Knowing they'll change. The point of baptism then is the commitment of the family and the church to name and mark this belonging that is already, the grace that is already real, but never to demand these beliefs and behaviors as payment nor condition for Lily's belonging to us, nor we to her. She can't believe or behave her way out of the community any more than she can believe or behave her way out of the Los family. Now here's the hard part, and I'm sorry. Might she choose things that break your heart? Might she behave in ways that make you wish you could control her behavior? Yes, Brandon, I know you have a sealed carry permit. Might she come to believe things about herself, about God, about the world, that are less than what we'd hoped and dreamed for her? Yes. Right? And that's not just babies being babies, that's people being people. But the question at the end of all of those what ifs and maybes and surelys, the question is, does that change her belonging? Never. 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 Because you might have heard, if you've been around here for any length of time, no one will ever be turned away. No one will ever be turned away. So, Brandon and Mary, why don't you come on up with Lily? And we have tonight, for baptism, the gorgeous Lillian Marie Los. And we've got Brandon and Mary, mom and dad are here. Here, why don't you guys stand kind of right in front of her, actually. Yeah, squish baby in the middle. And thanks to John for grabbing some pictures. She also, as you can see, she already rolls with an entourage. Grandparents and friends and all. And we trust you all that are here with the family, that you're here to affirm and support this. So we're going to ask the questions to Brandon and Mary. We assume that you guys are all nodding along. You can respond if you want to as well. So let's do this. On behalf of this congregation, collective, your church, we ask, will you renounce any evil which hurts others, this world, and yourselves? Have you heard the call to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever form they present themselves? Do you accept the God-given freedom to walk this path and to do this work? You confess that Jesus Christ shows us this path, commit to trust in this grace, and to serve this call in union with the church, which Christ has opened to all people. Do you promise to raise Lily in the church, that by your teaching and example she may continue to hear the call of love, to accept God's grace for herself, and lead a life of faith, hope, and love? And now you, collective, as you're able, I'm actually going to ask you to stand, because I want you to remember in your body that you take this seriously. Do you, as a congregation, embodying Christ's presence, reaffirm your faith? All right, so let's just get this standardized because I want to hear it solid. We do, something like that, but with like some bass in it though. Do you, as a congregation, embodying Christ's presence, reaffirm your faith?
We do.
That'll work. Will you nurture one another in faith and life and include Lily in your care?
We will.
We will.
With God's help, will you proclaim what you have heard, share what you have been given, and live with one another what you have practiced according to the example of Christ?
We will.
Will you surround Lily with a community of love and forgiveness that she may grow in her trust of God and be found faithful in her service to others?
We will.
Will you pray for her, holding her in the light that she may be a true student of love who walks in the way that leads to life?
We will.
Will you nurture one another? I think that was a spare. You guys already did that one and you got it right. All right. So, I'm trying to figure out, let me frame this right for the camera so that we get this on. Yeah. As Lily passes through these waters, our hope and prayer for her is that she finds a community walking with her as she grows in the ways of self-giving love, compassion, and generosity. May she come to know you all, the body of Christ, and in so doing, may she come to know God. Lillian Marie Los, get over here, girl. You gonna forgive? Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Actually, Caitlin, why don't you come up with this? I could use an extra set of hands. Yeah, right. She's a wriggler. Here, why don't you hold and I'll splash? There, over there. Yeah. All right. Lillian Marie Los. Baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit. All right. Now do the Lion King moment, everybody. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, all right, Lily. All right. Oh, sweet. Lily. Oh, she's so good. Oh, right, and I did find out today that I'm the godfather. So that's cool. I should have asked beforehand to make an offer she couldn't refuse. So I didn't do this. Oh, so sweet. Yeah. Lily, we love you. You can go get dry. We love you. Everybody, Lily. Brandon, Mary, Lily, family, we love you guys without condition. You belong to us, and we to you. Wow, that's a lot. You know what I'm going to do, Terry? Actually, go meet Sarah. This is my good friend Sarah. Get that mic pack from her, because then I'm going to bring you up in a minute. Stand by. Yep, Brandon's got it back there. Also, Brandon's the baptism dad and running the show, so a hand for Brandon. Thank you. Yes. All right, Dan, Ecclesiastes 3, take it away. Then we barely have enough time to talk about time.
There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to hear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God.
Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
Solid. So, yeah, we can, that deserves it. So, Dan, we're talking about practicing neighborhood for the next few weeks. Tonight, we're going to talk just for a second about time. Next week, we're going to talk about food. And I think Rajni and our good friend Louise will be here. Rajni, by the way, who is like an educator extraordinaire in social justice. She's doing a bunch of that stuff. Apparently, is also a poet. So she just published a book of poetry. She's in Austin this weekend at a poetry slam. But she's going to be here on the couch next week reading her poetry and talking about the sacredness of food. And then the last week, we're going to talk about, what was it? Time, food, silence. To be quiet. We'll talk about how we do silence together. So, I tried to give you this in a few kind of like micro doses here. So we got the yoga thing, we got the silence thing, we got the baptism thing. You're getting a sense for the reality that time is an important part of all of our practices, in that our relatedness to time is a part of what we're actually practicing. So we're talking about time in terms of space for relatedness and hospitality to be chosen as alternatives to speed, individualism, and like-mindedness. So this is from that book, Another Kingdom, that I've been walking around with for like a year and a half. And the idea is that we live in this market-driven society, right? What we call capitalism in its basic form, which worships at the altar of speed, individualism, and like-mindedness. And a part of what we do in slowing down in the neighborhood is we create space for hospitality to be chosen as an alternative to the rush, the productivity, the individualism, speed, all of that stuff. So we said in a neighborly way, and this is what Sarah and I talked about, in a neighborly way of practicing, time is measured by depth, and there is enough. Dan, just tell us, you were talking to me about this week. What does depth time look like in your neighborhood? You kind of had an experience of this with your neighbors this week, right?
Yeah, I have great neighbors. But I felt distance from them, especially with politics.
Yeah.
Because signs went up in people's yards, and of course you make assumptions about who people are. We're
That
not
community
supposed to make
statement's hard to live up
assumptions.
to, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I decided to make a concerted effort to find out who my neighbors were.
Right.
And I thought, how do I do that? So oddly enough, the neighbors on the right of me asked me if I could keep an eye on their house while they were gone. So the day I saw them packing up, I went to see them, and I asked them if there was anything else I could do other than keep an eye on their place. And I said, I know you have a cat. And they said, no, we're just leaving food for the cat. She'll have a big bowl. But they said, and I said, well, I'll take in your mail, I'll take in your newspaper. And their son and daughter-in-law were there, and I got to talk to them for about 5 minutes. And I talked to them before, but nothing like this. And I got to know who they really were. So my neighbors across the street had offered to help me if I ever needed anything. And I hadn't really taken them up on their offer. But they were so kind, and they were people I'd made assumptions about. So I decided to make a coffee cake and offer to have them over, because I know that the John had come up and seen my backyard and admired it, so I thought maybe he would like to sit out back. So I invited them to sit out back, and that was yesterday. And at 10 o'clock, they completely forgot me, and I went over to talk to them, and they were in the middle of painting their dining room, was why they hadn't come over to see me, so their mind was on that. So I went over, and I helped them, and we talked for about 25, 30 minutes while I helped them. And I got to know them a lot more. And then I thought, well, I took them over 3/4 of the coffee cake. So I took the other quarter, and my neighbor had loaned me, on the other side, had loaned me a ladder. and because I don't own a ladder, and I'm out of money right now because I'm not working. So he loaned me a ladder, and I put it over the fence, and I thought, I'm going to take over the last of that coffee cake. I'm on a diet anyway. So I went to take that over to him, and I talked to him several times, and he and I really connected. But I never met his wife. And I went to take it over, and she answered the door. And again, we talked for about 20 minutes, and this time, it's me. Usually I do all the talking. She got to do all the talking, and I learned a lot about them because I was silent, and so it worked out really well. So if you don't know your neighbors, I suggest reach out to them. You may not know who they really are. It may be worth it to just take that time. And if you're like me, remember to be silent.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that. That was really nice. From what I hear, though, I also know you well enough to know that you didn't sit down last Sunday night with your calendar and go, let me just schedule out all the times I'm going to generate interactions with all these different neighbors. So part of the practice was just allowing it to happen, allowing there to be space for unplanned time in your neighborhood. That's beautiful. That's awesome. Thank you. Really, really. So some of that, I think, for us has to just start with an openness to the possibility that the story we've told ourselves for me, it probably started in elementary school, certainly by middle school. The story we've been telling ourselves our entire lives that there's not enough time, just starting to question that. Maybe that's the beginning of the practice. Just starting to question that old story that there's not enough time. We're going to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for that, Dan. We're going to continue that on the Zoom, so I really hope you guys will connect with us there. There's a concept in Greek that distinguishes calendar time from depth time. Chronos, like chronology, calendar, watch, versus kairos. And kairos is the difference between Dan sitting down on Sunday night and engineering interactions versus the sense that he got that the time is now. Doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter what calendar you're looking at. There's a sense that the time is now. And you experienced that in your neighborhood this week, and you allowed time to unfold in such a way that that neighborhood happened. So Terry, I'm going to have Terry come up just for a second. This is my friend Terry. He's from St. Augustine. Hey, Terry, come. Yeah. Good to see you. Please. So Terry is, you can unmask if you're comfortable.
That's fine.
No pressure. So Terry is from South Africa by way of St. Augustine, Florida. We've been friends for a long time. And he was here last Easter. We were hanging at the house afterwards, and he got in a conversation with my dad about apartheid, because he came from South Africa. My dad had these questions, so they're talking about it. And this was so cool that this happened. So Chronos time is concerned with calendar time, clock time, when and where. Kairos concerned with depth. The time is now. So they're talking about when Mandela gets released from prison in apartheid South Africa. And my dad had questions about, how had this affected the country? And I got the sense in the conversation that my dad was looking for more science, clear-cut answers. Is this the way it is? Is this the way it is? And I feel like some of the answers Terry was giving was more that sense of something happened, right? The time was then. It wasn't necessarily something that was entirely engineered. Obviously, Mandela and all these people were part of it. But in the follow-up to this conversation, I'm doing some research this week, and there's this famous document that was put out by all of these churches in apartheid South Africa right around the time that Mandela is coming out of prison and starting to change everything over there. And surely enough, the name of the document they put out is the Kairos document, right? Which is why? What's the message of the Kairos document from churches to apartheid-ridden South Africa? The message is simply this: the time is now. The time is now. The moment is now. And it didn't have anything to do with what year it was. It didn't have anything to do with what month it was. It was that the time had come for something to happen. What they're saying is it doesn't matter what time it is. In a sense, it's funny because it makes our chronological perspective on time irrelevant. Really, Kairos says it doesn't matter at all what time it is. What matters is the time is now. That's what we do. That's what we practice with faith. We're saying no matter what time it is, the time is now for justice. And that means every year we have to ask, what is justice in our neighborhood? The time is now for that justice to be done. And again, that's what we're saying tonight about, especially coming out of the pandemic, especially coming out of the year that we've just experienced politically. We're saying, even though it's April 2021, that's irrelevant because right now it's the time to practice neighborhood. It's the time to slow down, to make space for hospitality, rather than simply efficiency, rather than the hustle, rather than this old, tired story that there's not enough time. Now is the time to make that time. In a moment, we're going to come to this table as we close and receive the Eucharist. This is a symbol for us, for our tradition of the materiality of our faith and the humanity of God, in a reminder that we ourselves are the body of Christ. We practice this through the human sacrament of hospitality. And this is our deepest practice of belonging in this place. A table where, as we did with this baptism, we rehearse unconditional belonging. The table of this unconditional belonging and transformative love is set. As always, it's open to us tonight, and it's open to all, and no one will ever be turned away. Stick around. We are going to try. It's just going to be for a few minutes again. We're not going to do the full-on Zoom. I'm sorry to the people who are online. We just don't have the bandwidth and capacity yet. But after the service, we're going to try for about 5 minutes to get a Zoom feed up to see if we can get some interaction. So if you want to be some of our guinea pigs online, stick around for that. Your voice does matter. If you want to jump in there and queue up on the Zoom, Kenny, if you've got the link, you can share that.
I dropped the link tree in the chat.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so the link tree is in the chat. Thanks for that. So on the link tree, there should be both the login code and the link to the actual Zoom. Feel free to jump in there and queue up, and we'll come and check on you guys in a few minutes. Thank you for joining us in person online. The service in the community, I think it's important for us to say this, especially because we're only week 2 of being back in person, but that changes dramatically how we practice as a community. So we've got to say this. The service in the community, they are absolutely a gift and a calling. They are not by accident, and they are not free. Good work requires attention, and it requires resources. And so a part of our practice with Collective moving forward is that we are going to support the congregation financially, and we're going to commit to stay connected. So if that's you, don't leave without giving back. You can go to collectivegives.com. You can also make your plan to stay connected. Kenny and I have been back and forth about it all night. Get the email, subscribe to the rundown, customize your engagement, all that kind of stuff. I think what I want us to do, I think what I want us to do, I'm going to let Kenny take us out with the benediction. We're going to do a little closing ritual, and then I'm going to invite you guys to come up and then we'll play with Zoom for a minute. Kenny, take us away.
Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who make the journey with us. So be swift to love, and make haste to be kind, and the blessing of God who made us, who loves us, and who travels with us, be with you now and forever. Amen.
Amen. All right, let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. First, to our foreheads for clarity of thought, to our lips for clarity of speech, and to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and love be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. Thanks for coming and just looking good on the couch. I didn't ever get around to a question, but man, did you make me look better. Yeah, I did. I used him as a prop. I'm sorry. How about this? Will you come back and join us again sometime soon? Nope. Absolutely not. Fantastic. Thank you. Grace and peace, everybody. All right. So here's what we're going to do. As you come and receive, bread for the journey, nourishment for the soul. I want to say a quick shout out and thank you to Annabelle, who we realized at the very beginning of the service we had not prepared the Eucharist. That was another one of those things, the volunteer thing. You come and bring that up here for us.